So every single thing that upsets you, that annoys you, that pisses you off, ask yourself why.
And we have this epidemic with men where we just sweep shit under the rug and we almost have to fucking lose everything to change. So when you're looking in the mirror as a man and you see...
But when you point a finger, there's one finger going to someone, but there's all these other fingers pointing back at you.
For me, I've had moments where even though I have everything and everyone I need, I don't feel...
When the pain of staying the same is greater than change, that's when great things happen.
It's unrealistic to look at your bank account and go, "F***, it doesn't have $1 million in it today, you fucking cunt." So then this confidence and self-belief gets burnt to the ground because we're full of shit. Love, appreciation, support, understanding, respect.
But sooner or later, your health and well-being is going to...
Introducing James Carson, a multifaceted talent excelling as an actor,
Handwritten letter. I don't know which is worse, which is why I keep everyone at arm's length.
content creator, and speaker, and has built a big online community. From personal branding to creativity, James has a lot to share. Let's dive in.
James, it's so fucking epic to have you here, man. I saw you walking in the rain when no one else was there, and I knew your energy had to be on the pod. Man, we got some epic shit to talk about here. Alcohol, success, fame, health, acting, working hard, and I think as part of the acting, wearing the masks we wear as men. So before we dive in, bro, I'd love for you to share who is James Carson? Where are you from? Like, what do you do? Why are you here? And what do you want to give us today?
Tony, first of all, mate, thank you so very much for the opportunity. Beyond grateful for being in this great space, being with you, hearing a bit about yourself before I came on here. Absolute honor. So I just wanted to say that. A bit about me. Where do I even begin to encapsulate a human being? So born on the Gold Coast, but grew up in country Western Queensland, grew up on the land with a family business. We have cattle, sheep, cotton, wheat, everything under the sun. Grew up working hard at a very young age, you know, mustering sheep, cattle work, guns, dogs, all sorts of stuff, and then went away to school on the Gold Coast as well. Very fortunate for that. Beyond that, I was played a lot of sport, had a great sort of school experience, but what followed after school was a bit of a dark period of my life where my relationship to alcohol, to junk food and everything was really rough. I grew to be very overweight in a very destructive path. Took performance enhancing drugs to try and get bigger and stronger because my young guy ego wanted me to be big and strong. That led me down an even further dark path, which I'm sure we'll get into. I had a big awakening and dove into personal development head first. From everything from meditation, plant medicine, counseling, psychology, reading 1,000,001 books to just try and be the best person I am. And that sort of led me to this point here with you, mate, which I'm very grateful for the journey. There's a lot in there, but that's short, succinct.
That was super concise. I love it. Yeah. So I really want to dive into the alcohol and the I suppose addiction and how you sort of destroyed yourself before you rebuilt yourself. Because a lot of guys listening to this podcast, they know in their heart and their soul and their body and their mind, they could be better, but they sort of wait until fucking breakdown, right? The wife leaves or they have a heart attack or they have a mental breakdown. And we have this epidemic with men where we just sweep shit under the rug and we almost have to fucking lose everything to change. So what was that process like for you? Like what happened with alcohol? What happened with junk food? How were you numbing and sedating yourself?
It's a good question, mate. So I think when I was at school, we were drinking, we were partying as young teenage boys do, not to generalize, but a lot of us were. And then after school, it was an interesting time because we were so active. I was playing rugby, rowing, all these things at school, eating a heap of food, just trying to get big and strong and everything. And then after school, the sport stopped, but there was still weight training, but all of the food remained, if not more. Boarding school was interesting because it kind of skewed your relationship with food. It was always a competition of how much you could eat, how many Weet-Bix you could eat, how many pieces of toast you could eat, how many eggs you could eat, whatever it is. So that followed on after school along with the drinking. The drinking was just always fun. It was just an outlet because at that time in my life, I almost felt like I was almost unconscious in my body. I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do. I thought I did, but I was just going through the motions. But what I looked forward to was just having beers with the boys, getting written off, going to the clubs in Surfers Paradise and partying and dancing and whatnot. And then I distinctly remember one day I was renting, or my parents were paying for my rent in this accommodation with a couple of my mates, sitting at the end of my bed and going, geez, I feel tight around the stomach. It's a sensation I never had before. And then as time progressed, I was eating Macca's 3 or 4 times a week because it was cheap, because it was easy, because I didn't know how to cook or look after myself. was eating McDonald's. I'd drink half a case of beer to warm up. And then I just grew and grew and grew. And then it was so unconscious, Tony, that it just got to a point where I was almost 140 kilos and training, but also it's just dirty bulking.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a blurry time for me, but it was a time nonetheless. I don't know what I was masking, maybe because I was still very insecure, didn't know what to do with my life, was unaware.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
How long did that go on for?
So when you speak about awakening, so straight after school, this went on until about 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So I graduated in 2008.
Yeah.
So that's like 4 years of destruction.
4 years of destruction. Yeah.
And then I had my first awakening, one of many.
Yeah.
And then started to turn everything around.
Yeah. So when you're looking in the mirror as a man and you see yourself almost 140 kilos, you realize that you're fucking drinking with the boys and not really doing anything with your life, right? You're just basically destroying yourself. At what point do you go, something needs to change? Because a lot of guys, like I said, they wait until that breakdown point. Like, were you aware of it while it was happening? You look in the mirror, you look down, you can't see your fucking little man anymore, or big man, depending on who you are, because you got a gut in the way. Like, do you not at that point go, I need to change? Or was it just like you were aware but not aware? Like, walk me through that.
You know what, brother? For me, I was so unaware.
Yeah.
I look back at old photos of myself and I was shocked.
Yeah.
Because it's also so gradual. You gradually gain weight. You gradually change and evolve.
Yeah.
It might have been sharp at the time, but for me, it was so gradual. It felt like I was good. Everything felt like it was okay.
Yeah.
It was like a great feeling when I got heavier on the scales.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, oh, I'm almost 140. I can tell everyone I'm 140. I could barely squat that, so it kind of doesn't really work. But so the awakening came, and I think, unfortunately, sometimes it has to come down to that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, oh, I should probably change now.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get a bit of a slap.
Yeah.
And my first slap, brother, the best way I could explain it, when I was overweight and drinking and in this way, I was very lonely and alone.
Yeah.
Like no way would I have a girlfriend or date someone. I'd like to.
Yeah.
But still comes up for me now. It was, it was a lonely and alone period for me. And then after quite a while, I befriended this girl who took an interest in me, and I was like, there's hope for me yet to meet someone, which sounds very strange to say, but it was this glimmer of hope that someone would like me.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing her, and then I assumed through a variety of different reasons that she was cheating on me with another person. She was chatting to someone or kissing someone or with someone else.
Yeah.
And for me, brother, I remember the moment where I was on the phone to her and I was like, hey, when I was hanging out with you on the weekend, who was texting you in the middle of the night, being a young, insecure guy?
Yeah.
You know, so getting text message from the middle of the night, wouldn't tell me who it was.
Yeah.
And was not very clear, was just, I could read between the lines basically.
Yeah.
And just started crying, threw my phone across the room, fell on the floor in a heap, just feeling really bad, really, really worthless, really. I was living with my sister at the time. She came out and consoled me.
Yeah.
And then internally, I'm like, right, I'm going to turn this all around. I'm going to lose weight and better myself.
Yeah. So you had that turning point. It's rock bottom, right?
Basically.
And I'm so grateful you shared that story, because it takes a lot of courage to, as a man, say, you know, I broke down, I was crying, I was losing myself. In a way though, it's kind of weird, right? Because you're a very good looking guy. Like, you look like Tarzan. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're a very good looking guy. I'm sure many women will be like, I want that guy. No, I get that now. But the reason I bring that up is not that I'm hitting on you. I got a beautiful wife. But it's because you wouldn't pick the insecurity, right? You wouldn't pick the fact that you don't care about yourself or love yourself. Now, maybe you looked different back then, but your facial features were still the same facial features. And this is the problem I see a lot with modern day men. We had a guy I spoke to yesterday. His wife has cheated on him multiple times. Now, for 10 years, he's been afraid she's going to cheat and saying things like she's going to cheat. And we often attract what we don't want, right? Mm-hmm. We had another guy whose wife reached out and he makes tens of millions of dollars, but he tries to throw money at all the problems. And he's really an insecure child who thinks that money is enough, but doesn't think he's enough. So that brings me to this topic of loneliness and insecurity and masks, right? You're an actor, yeah? You're featured in films, right?
Yeah.
You're on IMDb.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to talk about this idea of what you do in acting and how you had these masks before you were an actor with the drinking, with the loneliness, with the insecurity. Because a lot of men can relate to the masks if you explain that for them. So talk to me about masks in relation to loneliness and insecurity. The mask of like, I'm pretending to be this man to the world, but inside I'm insecure and lonely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I think there's a variety of masks that I had at that stage. And I think the masks was putting weight on.
Yeah.
Like it was like soothing me.
Yeah.
Because I was insecure, because I was unsure of who I was or what I wanted to do. So there was a mask of that. There was also this mask of, yes, I wanted to meet other women and connect.
Yeah.
But I was also not that I was unpleasant or mean, but I was just kind of like this guy'd make fun of people and stuff because I somewhat knew they wouldn't like me. So I'm like, let me just sabotage it straight away.
You make uncomfortable jokes, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of guys do that. When they're
Yeah.
uncomfortable, they make jokes to put other people down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it was a weird time, man. Like it was just, so basically the mask that I had was like soothing myself with food.
Yeah.
Was almost automatically kind of being like this, like guy that I didn't connect with people very well.
Yeah.
Back then. I did my best. Like I had friends,
Yeah.
but also it's just so awkward with women, with some people I didn't quite understand. Like I grew up in the bush as well.
Yeah.
So most people that I spent time with were dogs.
Yeah.
Or my family.
Yeah.
So even going to school and being around a lot of people, I was still actually working on my people skills.
Yeah. So you didn't have that ability to connect with people. Yeah.
Yeah, like not really. Like I was a good communicator and I asked questions because I like to deflect from myself, which is another mask.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just struggled because also I was insecure because everyone I was living with at that time was at university. They were studying. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I was studying fitness, but I probably had one of the worst attendance rates at TAFE and didn't end up even finishing the course.
Yeah.
That was one of the other things. Like I literally just wanted to study fitness so I could get paid to go to the gym. Yet I didn't even finish the course because I was drinking and carrying on. It was just this whole spiral of nothingness, and it's sort of dawning on me now as I speak to you about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating because looking back, it's so easy to see where we're fucked up as men, like drinking too much, feeling lonely, feeling like no one understands, feeling like we can't connect. If you're a guy listening to this and you can't connect with your wife or your kids or your team members, if you feel alone, it's very easy to know that once you've gone through it. But when you're in it, you don't realize, right? You're lacking that awareness. And this is where this idea of mask comes in. One of my coaches coached on it about 5 years ago at an event. And the way he described it is you put this mask on of confident or successful, or I'm a good father or a good provider, or I'm a great actor, whatever it may be. But when you take that mask off, you feel unsafe. And beneath the mask is the guy who's lacking confidence, doesn't like how his body looks, drinks every night to sedate, works too much because he feels safe at work. But when he's at home with his family, he feels like he's in a war zone. And if you can't live a life without the mask on, if you can't take the mask off, then you're never really yourself. And if you're not yourself, how can you have great relationships?
Exactly.
You just can't, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about loneliness. Obviously, you mentioned when you were drinking, it was a very lonely time for you. I think there is an epidemic right now for men of loneliness. Men in marriages with children, lonely. Men with big teams, lonely. Men with lots of friends, lonely. Talk to me about your journey with loneliness and what do you think are some tools and strategies you have used or a listener can use to overcome loneliness? Like, how do you do that?
For sure. And in all transparency and honesty, Tony, which I'll always be honest, loneliness is still a raw topic for me. So the journey through loneliness for me has been, there's been quite a lot, and it's actually incredibly, it's more unhealthy than we think.
Yeah.
There is definitely an item to be said that there's an awareness that needs to be held for having too much time on your own.
Yeah.
Either by choice or not. Even if you feel like you're enjoying it, you need to be aware that human connection is very important. So I suppose for myself, I've had heaps of bouts of loneliness. And when my relationship that most recently ended in July, I had July, August, September, October, all these times very much alone. And I needed to be, but it was also incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And there's been many other bouts. I haven't had a lot of long relationships, and I've spent a lot of time single. So I'm very familiar with loneliness. I'm very familiar with being alone.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly tough, and it wears away at you very incrementally.
Yeah.
Over time. And I'd be the first one to say that I've experienced loneliness a lot in life, and it still comes up from time to time, even now. As you see me, as I am a very happy person, I am for sure. I've got some great people around me, but still live by myself, still work. As an entrepreneur, you feel very alone, as you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of dynamics there, but luckily I have a beautiful mastermind. I have a beautiful family. I have other girl/friends, all these other people around me that I actively reach out to not fall into that comfortable hole of just being by yourself.
Yep.
Social media, we've never been so connected yet disconnected.
Yeah.
It's not real connection at all. You follow someone through their journey, for sure you see them, but you're not in there in the energy, giving them a hug, giving them a kiss, listening to them, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So actively seeking, and I used to push myself when I was increasing my confidence, Tony, is I feel lonely as heck. I just want to meet new people in this new area that I moved in. I moved to Ballina April this year. I just started chatting to people at the beach, and that sometimes nerves will come up because I just feel like it can be a bit cliquey, but you just got to push yourself. And after you have that conversation, most of the time it's quite pleasant. It's a beautiful feeling.
Just really quickly, if you're getting value from this podcast episode, I'd appreciate a massive favor. If you're watching on YouTube, give this a thumbs up, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, give this 5 stars. It helps us reach more men, keep more families together, and get better guests onto the show. So if you're getting value, all that I ask is you take 5 seconds to give it a thumbs up or 5 stars so we can help more people and keep delivering you epic value.
The interesting thing is, like, your loneliness seems to be the type where you're isolating yourself, and you've started to fix that, right?
Totally.
But I also see the perspective of being lonely when you're surrounded by people. Like, you can have great friends, you can have a family that loves you, you can have a marriage, you can have children, you can be an entrepreneur with other entrepreneurs. And I don't know if you've experienced this. For me, I've had moments where even though I have everything and everyone I need, I don't feel like everything's right. I feel like something's wrong. And I don't know if it's from my childhood. It's this like need to create stress or problems to be successful. But I felt lonely even though I've had it all. Have you experienced that before?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think that is?
Oh, it's a great question, mate. It's quality over quantity.
Yeah.
You know, like, for example, for me, in 2020 and 2021, I was building my coaching business. I had some great clients on board, was making great money, had some good friends, but the relationship aspect was missing at that time. And I was like, what is this all worth if I can't share it with someone? If I can't share it and have love and like share the wins and losses and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then there's these like surface level friendships and associations that we know we all have. And then there's the friends that know you to your core and love you and care about you. So finding people like that can sometimes be rare and or challenging and or hard to find. But once you do, mate, it's a whole different feeling.
Yeah.
That's when, if you have a person like that or a lover like that or whoever it is like that, you know that you cover all those bases.
Yeah, 100%. It's such an interesting topic. I did a post a few weeks ago, maybe last week, about how you don't deserve a great relationship. You don't deserve a great network. And that really ruffled some feathers. And the reason I said that and wrote that was that we tend to think as modern day men and as humans that we deserve all these things. But the reality is you get to earn it. Right? So I had a lady reach out to me yesterday saying, you and Rosie, my wife, are goals. Like, I see how great your journey is. You support each other. You understand each other. Social media, all she's seeing is the positives. She hasn't seen the fucking 8 years of struggles, arguments, sleepless nights, fucking hating each other, resenting each other, not having sex with each other. So this idea of social media combined with this idea of comparison, it can create loneliness within a man. It can make a man go, I should have more. I should have a nicer house. I should have a nicer car. And as men, we tend to forget what's really important, which is great relationships and great connection. But that takes work, right? It takes work. So having a network of men you can surround yourself with, having a great partner, you don't deserve it, but you sure as hell get to work towards it, right? So let's talk about your relationships. A lot of the listeners, their marriages are breaking down. They're successful. They're entrepreneurs like yourself. but they have no balance. They're unhappy. They're stressed. They're sedating with food and alcohol. Sound familiar? So
Yes.
how have you struggled in relationships, and what do you think these guys could relate to in terms of what they might be going through? And how have you worked through some of those things?
In terms of love relationships?
Yeah, in terms of intimate relationships, connection.
Ooh, that's a great question, mate.
Yeah, like is it communication, connection, trust?
Yes. So I think communication has been a massive one in terms of speaking your truth, but also learning to listen and understand. Having great listening and communication skills is such a beautiful and sometimes very rare thing to have. So learning to embody those. So I suppose for myself, the biggest thing for me, if there's any man out there who's also single or working on himself or looking to find a relationship and the confidence isn't there, I know how he feels. I was the same. And how I was able to work on that is just starting those little conversations, just like smiling, saying hello, working on these little incremental goals that help you to be better. I used to write goals in my journal, bro, back in probably just 2017, working on my confidence. Say hello to one woman today. Say hello to two. And sometimes I'd fall short and I used to beat myself up, like, just do tomorrow, try again.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of working towards. And then once you're in there, is all of your triggers, your childhood traumas, all the things that annoy you are going to be mirrored through that relationship. Every single thing that you are destined to work on will be shown through in your relationship. So for me, I truly value love and freedom, like being able to be myself and be able to operate how I am. There was a relationship that didn't really allow for that much freedom. So I also had to learn to speak my truth and ask for what I desired, but also have a level of compromise and have that conscious conversation with that person to be able to work that out. Time progressed, that relationship did not work. We were able to close that off and move on. But basically every single person comes to you, don't think that they're just shiny, perfect, wonderful human and you're shiny, perfect and wonderful. You're both have this subconscious of your childhood and all your experiences and all your paradigms and your lineage coming together in some beautiful union, and there's going to be things that come up. And then as you said, Tony, all the work you guys did, that's what one of the beautiful things with relationships is, you get to go through all your shit with that person. And learning to somehow love and respect that process. And I think having that love and respect that you and your wife would have is the beautiful thing. Like, yep, we've got this shit right now. I love you so much that we can work on it together. And that's part of the beautiful journey in life.
That's the key, is working on it together. And I just want to make one point. If you are listening to this and you're not single and you're in a relationship, don't talk to one woman a day because you'll get in trouble. But it's a great principle though. It's a great principle because a lot of guys listening to this are divorced. But if you're in a marriage, it's the same principle. Communicate with your partner once a day. Like, ask her, how are you doing? You said something earlier, listening to understand, listening to hear the person, right? Like, ask them, how was your day? What came up for you today? How can I support you? What do you need more of? We don't do that shit as men. We just assume our relationship is great. There's so much to unpack here in terms of what you said. So subconscious, a lot of guys blame their partners, right? They blame their partner for why the relationship isn't working. They blame their partner for the lack of sex. They blame their partner for the lack of respect. Spoke to a guy yesterday and he's like, I'm not blaming her. He just spent 10 minutes fucking complaining about her. I'm not blaming her, but she does this, she does this. You and I both know we can't control the other person. So if someone's listening to this and their marriage or relationship is not working, they're disconnected, they're not communicating well, there's not enough sex, how do you stop blaming and how do you go within? Because I know you actually, before acting, were a holistic health coach. How do you work through this thing called the subconscious? How is it impacting us? Like, let's dive into that.
God, mate. That's a big one. That's very deep. So the subconscious, so I suppose with blame and being a victim, you completely disempower yourself. And quite frankly, it's weak. So one of my teachers, Paul Chek, he may have said it, someone else may have said it, but when you point a finger, there's one finger going to someone, but there's all these other fingers pointing back at you. There's 4 fingers coming back at you. So taking radical ownership and introspection is one of the most challenging yet most empowering and beautiful things you can do. So when it comes to subconscious, some would say, even Bruce Lipton or whoever it might be that speaks heavily on this, even Joe Dispenza, could be at least 90% of who we are is from our subconscious. So things that tick over automatically are these systems and programs that were built into us up until the age of 7. How do we go through these things? Man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
So it's bringing awareness too. So for me, growing up as a kid, I had the wounds of abandonment and guilt. And these wounds came through meditation or what I tried to work with the psychologist. There were a couple of times where I was accidentally left at a shopping center. Maybe I went and pissed off somewhere to go and check out some toys or whatever and got left behind. And I think, oh, no one loves me because I got left behind. That's abandonment. So whenever I was like, I didn't want to get too close to someone because abandonment would come up, meaning they were like, oh, they'll just hurt me. They'll just leave me. Guilt would come up because I was a bit of a naughty kid. I'd feel very guilty of all the annoying things that I did for my mum and dad. They had to discipline me for. And that wasn't me being a bad child. That was me just looking for love. But I suppose coming back to the subconscious, that can come through many different ways. It just comes through maybe even just sitting in silence with pen and paper and going through all of your triggers, because your triggers are your teachers. So every single thing that upsets you, that annoys you, that pisses you off, ask yourself why. Just keep asking yourself, why does it annoy me when she doesn't sleep with me? Why do I think that is? What do I have to own on that? Oh, it's because I'm not showing up, not doing this, not doing that. Why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? Because of this, that, and the other, whatever it might be. Mask, insert the blank, insert, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So the subconscious is a big one, mate, and it can be very stubborn to move. It can be very stubborn to change, but it is possible because I've done it within myself. It takes awareness and then constant considerate action. It's like going to the gym. If you want to program a new program in the mind, as you would know, of I am confident, literally an affirmation that I used to have. And you look at me now, I used to say it to myself in the mirror every single day, eyeballing myself, mad dogging myself, and not even believing it at all initially. But after a while, it starts to change. So the subconscious is such a deep thing that's so rooted in who we are, but it can be evolved when we start to become aware of what's not serving us and then writing a new story and then visiting that every day.
Makes a lot of sense.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
So I want to unpack the subconscious even more, because what you just shared was a great example of it. But for the listener at home, it's like getting in a car, and when you're first learning how to drive, right? You got to check the wing mirrors, you got to check the rear view mirror, you got to check everything, seat belts, etc. You got to look everywhere. But there's a certain point where you're driving and you're looking at the dash and you look back up at the road and you go, fuck, haven't looked at the road in like 30 seconds, but you haven't crashed. Because your body's on autopilot, your mind is on autopilot. Absolutely. And that's what your subconscious is. So when you're feeling abandonment and guilt from being a child, probably before 7 years old, and that's now showing up in your intimate relationships, no one's fucking aware of that. It's on autopilot. And I think a lot of men, they don't realize that if their marriage isn't good, if their health isn't good, if their business isn't good, or it could be better, there are some programs and subconscious patterns that are holding them back. Guilt, shame, abandonment, etc. So the best way to fix that, right, is you take the subconscious and you make it conscious, which is what you said. You write it down. How am I feeling? What am I thinking about? What is my role in this, etc. But do you know what's hard about that, James? That requires a huge fucking set of balls.
Yeah.
Because it requires you to take ownership. For a man to actually go, you know what? The only reason I don't have the life I want is me. Not my childhood, not my wife, not my children, not my friends, not my partner, me. That's what you did when you were crying on the floor. You took some fucking ownership, right? So walk me through, you're communicating better, you've taken ownership, you're unpacking your subconscious. How does a man listening to this, without having a breakdown, because hopefully they're listening to this without breaking down, how did they start changing? What were the steps that you took to have better relationships, to have more confidence, to be healthy, to be happy? Like, what was the process like?
Oh, mate, that was years of personal development. But I
Yeah,
think,
sure, it's gonna take a while.
But the biggest thing is to bring forward is it is almost a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
And that's what self-development is. It's a lifelong journey. It's a never-ending process, but that's what makes it really beautiful, and that's what makes it so rewarding. So I think the most actionable thing that I did straight away was when I started journaling. When I was going through a whole nother story, going through recovery from surgery, I was meditating, seeing a psychologist. I even dabbled in the plant medicine realm, And it just brought all these unconscious things forward. Even breathwork. One of the biggest things I had was I had a holotropic breathwork session in 2019. And it was one of the most mind-blowing experiences ever, where I was like crying. I had full of tetany. I was like, wow, I was going through all this trauma. And all this stuff came up of all this childhood stuff. And the thing was as well, Tony, we don't know what is not, like, we don't know what we don't know is there, so to speak. So a lot of the times we actually are very unconscious of whatever the problem is. Yeah. And then facing it is even harder. So bringing awareness to self-reflection through the meditation, through the journaling, through counseling, through the whole nother world, through plant medicine, whatever it is. But having the radical responsibility for self is one of the most beautiful things you can have, mate. Like all of the work I've done on myself, no one has pushed me. No one has like, go out and do this. Make sure you meditate. Make sure you journal. It's all been through myself. But that's what's made it the most rewarding and precious thing I've ever done. Yeah. Because you're in full control of working on yourself. If anything comes up for me, I'm like, why does that come up for me? Why does that come up for me? If he says this, why does it? Because even when you mentioned loneliness before, mate, there's still something there for me that gets emotional. Yeah, but you could see as soon as I mentioned it, you're like, cool, I get to work on this. Totally. Like you could feel the energy there. You're like, this thing came up for me. Guarantee you're not going home and going, where's my rug? Let's sweep that shit under it, right? No. You're going to look at it and you're going to do something about it. Yeah. And I wrote down this word here, the work. You know, again, that idea of deserving it. As men, like it's not enough to just work financially anymore and make money. Sure, that's success. But what's the point of that work if you lose your loved ones in the process? So the actual work is the journaling, writing down your thoughts and feelings. It's the meditation, slowing the fuck down despite how busy you are, which is so hard for a modern man to do. I don't know about you. I find it difficult at times. Talking to a psychologist or getting a coach, right? And then radical responsibility, taking ownership of your life. Now, I want to talk about your journey through getting off alcohol and getting healthy. Like you're doing all these things, but how did you get consistent? Because anyone can do this for a day or two. Like you look great, you obviously feel great. How did you make this who you are? How did you upgrade your identity? Another great question, mate. So I think the biggest thing for me as a kid and even as a young adult, I was terrible at sticking to things. I'd have ideas, I'd have things that I'd want to do and it would come and then it would go. So that was something that I was like a massive thing that I got to work on. I'm like, how can I turn this around? So I think what came, mate, was when I went through that breakup and I started losing weight. The thing is, what's really interesting is when you're trying hard to keep weight on, as soon as you start to change it, it comes off, like a bit of it comes off quite quickly, which is great. So that started to give me little chunks of self-belief. Anything that I could do that could fill up this jar of self-belief within myself was amazing. Whether that was like eating more veggies, whether that was like not having McDonald's, whether it was that quitting drinking, whatever it was, all these little things built up an incremental jar of self-belief in knowing that I could do it. And then I can also have a sense of addictive personality that when something works really well, I'm like, I'm all over it. So as soon as I was having anxiety and I meditated and I felt an instant change, I was like, I'm going to meditate every day. Yeah. And then as soon as I started journaling, I saw how it rewired my psychology and deepened my relationship with my whole family, namely my dad. I was like, I'm going to do it every day. And I have ever since. So those are the things. It's a felt sense where I just apply. If it works, great, I'm going to do it. If it doesn't work, pass it off, move on to the next thing. That's an amazing way to operate, because a lot of guys, what they'll do is they'll try something once, and because it's either difficult or there's resistance, they'll go, fuck this, and put it in the too hard bucket. So one of the first things we teach our clients is a morning routine: journal, meditate, cold shower. Whether you're a 100K employee or a $200 million CEO, it's the first thing you learn. Doesn't matter, right? Right. Now, it is great. And the guys who do it in 3 weeks turn around everything, fix their marriages, fix their minds, rewire their minds. But then you get the guys who go, it's too hard. What do you mean, how am I feeling? I don't know. And they put it in that too hard bucket. And you just mentioned this idea of consistency and self-belief. How can you have self-belief and confidence if you haven't proven that you deserve it, right? I keep saying that word. I don't know why I'm doing it so much, but like it's confidence comes from proving to yourself, right? So you prove to yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. What would you say to a man who's tried changing their life before, but they're not consistent and they don't have that confidence and they don't have that self-belief and they've given up or they've put it in the too hard bucket? How do you stop doing that? The best way that I could answer that is remember and clearly understand your why, in why you want to make this change, what it might be. Just start sitting down and think, okay, I want to do this, 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 and this. You might fall off the wagon, but then ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is this going to do for me now, but what is it going to do for me in the future? So I think for me, I used to look back when I was sort of the shy, scrawny kid. I'm like, why am I doing this? Because I want to make him proud. And I want to make my family proud. And I want to make a future partner proud. So if you think about the greater overarching reasons as to why you want to do it, that helps to keep you on par. Sometimes as well, Tony, is the saying goes, when the pain of staying the same is greater than change, that's when great things happen. So if your current circumstance is that terrible, that's what propels you forward, which is kind of what did it to me. And then once I was able to get that push, there's times where I fell off for sure. But then I remembered, okay, you want to do this for yourself. You want to, because no one else is going to be here for you. You're on your own. Remember, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your family. You're doing it to be your best. And you don't have to make quantum leaps every day. 0.5% better every day. I literally used to say, even if it's just 0.5%, if you just stood with your shoulders back, if you just drank a little bit more water, if you just winked or nodded at yourself in the mirror, I shit you not, that's exactly what I would say. So it was like literally creating this momentum by making the bar for entry really low.
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, this, oh, it's a big day. Yep. So keeping that bar low, being consistent and remembering your why.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can answer that.
Love that. At the end of the day, like having a healthy body, having a bulletproof mind, having great relationships, having a successful business or career, all of those things are actually quite simple. Like there's only 10, 15 steps to having a healthy body, like probably less. Eat healthy food, sleep well, go for a walk, exercise, like we're already running out of most of them, have good gut health, right? Like it's not that many steps. Business, marketing, sales, fulfillment, operations, relationships, communication, empathy, understanding, love, respect. Like there's not that many things and all the information's out there. But a lot of guys complicate it and they don't have that why. And they also don't attach that pain you talked about. So the way I like to frame it is we have now pain and we have a later pain. So there is pain to getting up at 4:30 like James and I did today and went for a workout. That's painful. But it's also painful having a heart attack. Now this pain is further away, so we don't consider it. It's painful asking your partner how they're feeling and having a difficult conversation, which you did a lot of. It's also painful her saying, I don't love you anymore, I'm taking the kids. Men are so fucking good at just ignoring pain and not attaching to the why. Now, you mentioned the why, like why for me, for you, it was very much for you, right? A lot of guys don't give a shit about themselves. They don't. That's why we get fat. That's why we drink. That's why we sedate. So if you're listening to this right now and you know you need to change, ask yourself why, but also who. Like why for your kids, why for your partner? They deserve it. You don't deserve it. They deserve the best version of you. What do you think stops men from becoming the best version of themselves? Because we upgrade our phones, we upgrade our iPads, we upgrade our cars. We don't fucking upgrade ourselves. Give me $5,000 for a coaching program. Nah, too much money. Sorry, Christmas is coming up. Can't afford it. Like, what is that? Why do we struggle to take that pain and change it? Why don't we fucking commit to upgrading ourselves?
The way I have seen it, mate, is, and I do my best to say this, sometimes I struggle with words, familiarity breeds contentment. So they're so familiar with how they are now that they're just like, this is fine. This will do, or whatever. Or if it's not under threat, then it won't change. So it's so weird, man. Like you, as you mentioned, new phone, new car, new whatever. You'll always take your car for a service. You always get a new phone potentially, but like the body and the temple comes last. But sooner or later, your health and well-being is going to be your number one concern.
Yeah.
And prevention is better than cure. Why doesn't it happen? I just think people are just like, oh, I can walk, I can stand up. Oh, I've got a bit of a sore back. It's fine. But over time, that sore back could be some sort of low spinal issue. The weight starts to grow. As you mentioned before, you can't see the old fella anymore. It's just incremental. It's like the frog in the boiling water analogy.
Yeah.
It's like if it slowly boils, you don't feel the difference till all of a sudden you're like, oh God, I'm so disconnected from my kids or from my wife. Why? It's because, every time I came home, I didn't talk to them properly. And it's just this incremental thing that we become familiar with our circumstances. And sometimes that's when that big blow comes and they have to make a change.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.
That's so powerful, man. Yeah. So this idea of fine and familiarity, and you're right. I don't know if you've had much depression or anxiety. You know, growing up, I was severely anxious. I couldn't leave my house. I was severely depressed. When Talia, my first daughter, was born, I had 6 months of deep depression. And I was at the end of that, January 2020, and I was thinking about ending my life. And then I felt so fucking guilty for even having those thoughts while having a daughter. And what had happened was I'd achieved some level of success. I had my property portfolio. I had my family I'd always wanted, and it became familiar. It sounds stupid. Like I had everything I wanted, but I became comfortable. And that word you just said was my mantra. I'm fine. How you feeling, babe? I'm fine. How's life? Fine. Or I'm good, right? We say these things as men, and we're actually, if you really break it down, subconsciously lying to ourselves. I think a lot of men listening to this aren't going to listen and go, you know what? My life's fucking awesome. Got a great marriage or relationship. I'm a great father or partner. I'm a great person. I'm positive. I'm happy. My body's fucking amazing. I'm healthy. I sleep well. Fucking no one's going to say that. I do coaching calls and I say, who's got everything? No one, right? So there's this idea of familiarity and being fine. We talked about pain earlier. How can someone listening to this take the pain that you had when you're fucking crying on the floor and bring it into today to make a lasting change? Because like it's hard, right? For these guys. How do you do that?
Oh, that's a good question as well, mate. You're great at questions, bro.
Yeah, it's my superpower. I'm the question guy.
I can tell, man. It's like therapy here. So that is a great question again. So if I was to meditate on that so I just don't launch into an answer.
Well, and also I think as well, because you've done coaching, you've been a holistic health coach. Like you've dealt with people who just don't fucking change. And it's almost like some people need to have their life fall apart, but we want to help them before that happens. So like, let's say you're coaching someone and they're like, I'm fine or I'm good. And you know their life's shit. They don't fuck their wife. The wife doesn't fuck them. They don't have any time. They're constantly stressed. You know they're not fine. Say it's a good friend of yours. How do we break through to someone like that? You know?
Well, it would, if you could be one-on-one, it's a conscious conversation. Like if someone doesn't tell me that they're any greater than, like if someone just says I'm good, I would actually inquire into them. Like, oh, how's things? Like I'd actually dig a bit deeper, because unless someone's a bit more than that, I think that there's something going on. So I suppose initially you start off with a conversation with the person, how are things going really? And just keep asking why. Like, oh, things are all right. Oh, why is it only all right? Why is it not better than that? Oh, because of X, Y, Z. Oh, okay, well, what can we do about that? So you can start off with a conscious conversation. But I think one of the best things that I ever got, Tony, was I used to work in hospitals in marketing roles in the Gold Coast University Hospital and the PA Hospital in Brisbane. If someone's just fine, I used to say this to clients as well. I was like, go for a stroll through palliative care ward, or go through a stroll through ED, or go through a stroll through neonatal intensive care or something like that, and see how precious and fragile life actually is. Throughout our life, you'll probably never, I don't know if you have, you'll probably never ring 000. And I hope you never do. But this is the thing. There is someone today who was in an accident in the rain in their car, or there was someone today who went to see their GP. You're at our age, you have melanoma, you have a rare form of XYZ. So being aware that life is not guaranteed. And as you said before, having to earn your circle, earn your relationship, there's a sense where consistent work has to come into loving life. And if you're just like, oh, every day is like, oh, whatever. I'm like, there's someone in the palliative care ward who would fucking swap you in a second and fucking love the fuck out of your life, or find a way to love it even more. So I think I was able to have those realizations being in that environment, and I was able to communicate to those people. So if the man's listening now, mate, nothing is guaranteed. Health is a fucking precious, excuse my language, but is a precious, beautiful gift. I know we all say that, but it's not until you go for a wander through a hospital, go for a walk through a cemetery at the same time. They say the cemeteries are some of the richest places in the world because that's where dreams go to die. Unrealized dreams, unrealized relationships go to die, in good ways and in bad ways. So I push people to really meditate on life and sometimes on death. And sometimes that's like, oh shit, okay. That might be a bit confronting, but it's a great way to be confronted without having to go through it yourself.
It's super necessary. I do this thing called a death walk once a week. I just walk and think about dying.
Really?
Sounds morbid.
Wow.
Yes, I just think about dying. Like, because I used to have severe death anxiety, and I just think, who am I going to leave behind? What am I going to leave behind? What's my legacy? And it sobers me up to the fact that I could die tomorrow. Touch wood, I don't. I don't know if you saw the UFC. There's a fighter called Anthony Smith, and his coach died recently. I don't know the full story, but he got into the octagon on the weekend, and he just didn't fight. He was yelling at the guy fighting him, Dominic Reyes. He's like, just hit me so I can feel something. And he experienced someone he cares about dying. Now, the challenge I see with what you just shared, and it's so powerful, go to a hospital, go to a cemetery, meditate, journal, start doing little steps, start creating self-worth and self-belief, get out of fine. All that stuff is valuable, true, fair advice that will change someone's life. But I guarantee a lot of guys are listening to this going, yeah, but I don't have enough time. I'm busy. And I'm not mocking them, right? I get it. Like I know I'm busy. I've been that guy. It all sounds great, but we just don't make the time. So what do you say to a guy who's constantly busy and doesn't have the time to do these things?
Again, lowering the barrier for entry. And this comes down to carving out 5 minutes, 10 minutes out of your day. I think you might have mentioned this. If I look at screen time on people's phones, you'll be able to carve out 10 minutes in there somewhere. There'll be an hour for sports bet. There'll be a couple hours on Instagram or whatever it is. Put something in your calendar, preferably in the morning, as you say, the morning routine, because what you experience as soon as you wake up and the repetition of that is who you become. So if you carve out a 5-minute moment, even if you just woken up, you're like, rightio, let me go through my head. What am I grateful for today? How could I be my best today? Whatever it might be. Simple introspection. That starts with just a really low barrier for entry, just a few positive thoughts as soon as you wake up. And then you build on that slowly. It's like, okay, I did the positive thoughts. I might keep a journal beside my bed. Let me just write down a goal for me to be a little bit better today, whatever that goal is. So it's just starting super small and being really honest with yourself. The no time thing is no excuse. I'm sorry to say it might irk some people out there, but in my mastermind, everyone apart from one man, they're all fathers, and majority of them as well run their own businesses. Some of them are very successful. They're all successful, but some of them have very high needs, businesses, 2 kids, wife, all this kind of stuff. They all find time. They find more than enough time. So how does it make anyone else special, so to speak? You can prioritize the time. You can shift things in your calendar. Start small and then grow from there. That's the best way I can answer. I get a bit passionate about it.
It's you have every right to be, because I get it. Like it's such a bullshit excuse, and it's one I've used my entire life. What's the quote? When something's important to you, you import it into your consciousness. So when we say we don't have time, what we're really saying is this isn't important to me right now, right? There are 10,080 minutes in a week. Let's say you do 60 minutes a day or let's make it simple, 50 minutes a day of working on yourself in the morning. 50 times 7 is what, 350? Have I got the math right there? 10,080 minus 3. Let's just say you have like 9,700 minutes left a week. That's a lot of minutes, right? Don't want to confuse the listeners. But the point is, it's about making the time. So you and I have both experienced clients and men who say, I don't have the time. And well, guess what happens? Their life doesn't change. Their relationship stays the same or gets worse. Their business stays the same or gets worse. And then you have the guys who go, you know what? I'm going to import this into my consciousness. I'm going to make it important. I'm going to make the time. And they create the time. And it's fascinating how many men, they have a shit relationship, they have a shit business, they have a shit mindset, they have a shit body, and then they just expect it to change. Like, it requires work. Like, it's unrealistic to look at your bank account and go, fuck, it doesn't have $1 million in it today, you fucking cunt. But in reality, you've done zero work, right? When you see that million in there and you go, I've worked for that, it makes sense, self-belief. So if you are a man listening to this and you're going, this sounds great, but I don't have the time, fucking make the time, man.
What I could say to that as well is the power of words.
Yeah.
Casting a spell.
Yeah.
So literally just say you do. Even if you don't believe you do, just say you do. Just start saying it every day. Even if you're not doing it, I have the time to work on myself. Just saying those words every day consistently. And you'll find a moment, you might be sitting at lunch and you just got a couple of minutes to spare. You're like, you know what, I'll do some quick journaling, whatever it is. So start being really, and I can tell you are as well, Tony, you're very aware of the words you say, both empowering and disempowering. I say you're very strong, which is amazing. If you're so aware, just start saying, that's the lowest barrier to entry. Start saying you have time. Start saying you're proud of yourself. Start saying, I am a great husband. I am a great father, whatever it is. And watch how your actions start to connect and match that.
Yeah, that's great advice. I learned from a neuroscientist, Josie Thompson. She's actually in Brisbane. She was friends with Joe Dispenza before he became big. And she has the same amount of knowledge, same amount of, impact to give. She just never marketed herself the same way. And she framed the power of words, NLP style, as not saying I am a great dad and I am all these things. And I see the value of it. But the reason she said to not do that was if there's a shred of your subconscious mind that doesn't believe it, it's not going to fully work. So she put in a word in between the I am that completely changes the frame. And that is, I am becoming. So I am becoming the best father I can be. I'm becoming the millionaire because I see the value of affirmations, right? But if you sit there on your couch going, I am a millionaire, I am a millionaire, and you're fucking jacking off, eating Cheetos or Doritos or Pringles and watching Housewives of Miami or whatever the fuck is on TV these days, it's not going to happen, right? So I think the words, like you say, affirmations, so powerful, they work for you. And adding in, I am becoming, right? Let's talk more about language because the way I see language, it's like a frame. So we have this iPad here. Everything in this frame exists only in this frame. So that word fine doesn't exist outside of this frame, right? So let's say I say the words, I don't have enough time. I exist now in that frame of I don't have enough time. And the entire world of how I could have time exists outside of that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Right? So if I believe and say in my mind, I don't have enough time, I'm not going to find it. If I say my wife is the reason that I'm fucking failing my marriage, I'm not going to look for responsibility. So the frames of our language are so important. What has been your journey with subconscious growth and language that has helped you in your relationships, your health, your wealth? Like, walk me through that.
Massively. I think one of the first few things that I learned about was weasel words from Dave Asprey, long time ago. Need, try, can't.
I never heard it framed that way.
Yeah, weasel words. Basically, it's just like he calls it insurance to not follow through.
Yeah.
I'll try and get there on time.
Yeah.
I need to do this. It's like there are only common human needs like oxygen, like water, like shelter. Everything else is a luxury as he describes it. So not saying, if you frame things in a better way, for me, I'll speak for myself. When I started framing things in a better, more empowering way, the action was way more successful. Then also being super aware of how I spoke about myself, rather than saying, I lack confidence, I can't talk to these girls, being like, I'm working on being better. Simple change. You don't have to be hard on yourself. You don't have to completely bluntly lie to yourself. It's just framing things in a more positive way. So avoiding weasel words. It's not boxing yourself into a corner because entrepreneurship is still very new. Well, I would say very new to me. It's only sort of since 2020. And I didn't even call myself an entrepreneur. Like I just said, I do things and people pay me money occasionally.
Yeah.
But I started embodying like, I am a businessman.
Yeah.
I was like, that was a weird thing to say, but I started working on that and that helped to excel my results in business. or it's just super framing, because words are more powerful than we think.
Yeah.
What's the old mystical saying? Like it's called spell because it casts a spell. It's an energetic vibration that you're sending out into the world. And if those are strong and empowering, they have the potential to create strong, empowering results. But if I can really tell a lot about a person's psychology as to how they speak, both about themselves and how they frame their actions and how they show up. And I get pulled up from my mates, and I ask them to, and I also pull them up as well when they're a bit flip-floppy. It's like, oh yeah, I'll see if I can make it. Yeah. Are you going to be there or not?
Yeah.
Fucking tell me if you're going to be there or not. Don't be half-assed. Like, be a man of your word. And I think as well, Tony, is when you say you're going to do something, you do it. Because as soon as you start breaking those promises to yourself, I'm going off on a different traction, but you start to lose that water of self-belief in your cup.
It's so true though. And I'm glad you went down that path, because we say this as men all the time. I'm going to come home on time. I'm going to work less. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to go to the gym. New Year's is coming up. I'm going to fucking work out. We don't fucking do it. So then this confidence and self-belief gets burnt to the ground because we're full of shit. And the way you do something is the way you do everything. So if you're full of shit with your exercise, guess what happens in your marriage? Guess what happens in your business, right? There's a lot to unpack here with words. So if you're a listener right now, something you can take away home with you right now, which you shared, is remove the word try. Yeah. There is no try. We had a client recently, 30 employees, super successful, marriage is shit. He knows it will break down if it continues. I gave him some simple tasks. Like you said, keep it simple. I don't know the frame you use, but I know what I'm trying to say here is like little things, step by step. Yep. He goes, oh, I'll try. I'm like, are you going to try? Or are you going to do it? I'll do it. Cool. So stop saying you're going to try, because it weakens you. And then in terms of need, I've never heard the word weasel words before, but a frame for the listener, if you say I need to do this, or I should do this, or I have to do this, replace it with I get to. Because they presuppose stress, need. I need to get this done. No, you don't. Yeah, but I do. It's a deadline. So what? You don't fucking need to do it, right? So replace it with get to. And then the final thing is words and meaning. So words are simply meaning, and words and sentences create emotions. So I don't look at you and go, ooh, in my head and feel like sad or angry. You might say something rude to me and my thoughts will be, he's an asshole, he shouldn't have said that. And then I'll feel angry. Does that make sense? They're connected. So the words we use internally in our head and externally in our relationships, businesses, etc., impact our reality, right? The final thing is pulling you up on it. So talk to me how you can do this in a relationship. And I'll tell you a story about Rosie and I in a second. But let's say you notice your partner or your team using weasel words or saying things that don't serve them. And let's say you notice it with yourself. How do you turn yourself into a meaning-making machine that uses powerful words? And how do you pull other people up on it without them telling you to fuck off? Right? Because I say to my wife, she's like, I'll try to get it done. I'm like, are you going to try? Or are you going to get it done? She's like, go fuck yourself. Right? So how do you pull people up on it?
Yeah. So I think it comes down to the how you frame and how you deliver it and your relationship to that person, no doubt. So I suppose with a few of my close mates, I can be really blunt. I was like, mate, like for example, my mate in Sydney, and over I fly there, ask him to come pick me up from the airport. He's like, oh, I'll try and get there. It's like, mate, you're fucking picking me up or you're not. Like, just let me know so I can tell him like that. But I think, for example, I have a close girl / friend who came over to my house for dinner the other night, and she was talking about how, you know, she just has this sense of self-worth lacking. There's this desire for human connection, all these different things. She's like, I feel I have to try harder. I really need this. And I'm like, thank you for sharing that, first of all. Let's work on just gently reframing this in a wonderful way. It's like, you get to work on this. It's something that you desire. Yeah. So it's just gentle. It's just coming through. And it's not like, the thing is that all men should learn from women. They're not coming to you for solutions. They want to just share emotions. But at that time, I was like, do you mind if I give you some advice on what you just said?
Yeah, that's a great frame, right? Yeah. It's like asking permission. So what you did was you acknowledged, thank you for sharing that. Then you ask permission, do you mind if I share with you a perspective on that? Do you mind if I share something I observed? And if they say no, you stop talking. Totally. If they say, if they say no, I don't mind. Yes, I do mind. And then you go, I just saw or heard you say this. Are you even aware that you're doing it? And what's beautiful about this in a relationship sense is once you learn how to do it, your relationships grow so much faster. So when Rosie and I have clearing conversations, we'll agree that she can hold me to account when I use weasel words. I didn't frame them that way, but if I say I need to do something or I'll try, can you pull me up on it? So we'll fuck it up. I'll say, I'll try. She'll say, are you going to try or are you going to get it done? But we have that relationship. Think about how crazy it is that in our intimate relationships with our family, with our friends, we can't do that, a lot of us. That's crazy, right? This empowers you to be pulled up on and pull other people up on it. Let's finish off with communication, and then I want to talk about walking in the rain.
Beautiful.
What are some communication tactics? You talked about framing that you've used to help you have better relationships, whether it's in business or with an intimate partner.
Ooh, great question. Again, Tony, you're all over it. Start with business. So I've had a variety of different business relationships, whether it's a film director, whether it's a cast member, whether I've done heaps of user-generated content, so whether it's with a brand or a menswear brand for modeling, whatever it is, or speaking engagement. I've always grown up on this country politeness. That's been my benefit of coming up with this, just this genuine, nice handshake, eye contact. It's nice to meet you. How are you? Being really aware of the energetic conversation in terms of the energetic exchange. Like if we caught up, mate, and I was talking like 90% of the time, you think, God, that guy just talks under 6 foot of wet cement. Or if at the same time, if I was just like, if you kept talking and I just kept asking you questions, you'd also be like, I feel really hurt, but I know nothing about him. So you have to be aware of also sharing too much and not sharing enough. A big one that I've learned is being okay with sharing and not deflecting, which is something that an old master. But coming at someone like they're already your friend and just being polite. It sounds really silly, sounds really simple. It's like, how are you, Tony? How's like I asked you about your family. It's like, this is such a great space. This is amazing. Da, 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 da. So having that soft skill ability and being aware of how much talking you're doing and how much listening you're doing.
Yes.
That's a very general business sense that I can do. But just coming at someone with a smile and like a good energy before you go into the interaction.
Yeah.
Then when it comes to relationships, what I have learned in the relationships that I've had is one of the biggest things that I learned from one of my great mates, my best mate, who's been in a relationship for 18 years now, married for 15, I believe. They have what I call weekly check-ins. Probably similar, sounds like what you do with your wife.
Yeah.
Where they sit down, they go, how are you? Like, don't give me the robotic answer. Like, how are you really? And you just sit there and you listen. And then what's coming up for you right now? Like how's things in your body? How's things in work? How's my way of showing up for you right now? Is it meeting your expectations? Or here's some things that I'd love to talk about that I would love from you. So it's like this beautiful present. There's no phones there. You're just sitting face to face, going through all these things that you need. So in a previous relationship, I was sharing some things with her about, I'd love if you asked me a few more questions about my day.
So powerful, man.
Yeah. So, and then she would ask me, I wish you didn't ask me so many questions about my day. So there was this to and fro, but I didn't know that was an issue until we had that conversation. Yeah. And that might have just buried away at her for a while until down the end, you're like, oh my God, I wish you wouldn't ask me so damn questions all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, conscious conversations in relationships.
So powerful. Like think about how many men just want their wife or partner at the end of the day to say, hey, is everything okay? How was your day? And to feel safe enough to say, honestly, it was fucking shit.
Totally.
And to be able to share that with any judgment, but we go, it was fine. Or she doesn't ask. I had the same conversation with Rosie. Like we had a clearing conversation one weekend and I said to her, she said, is there anything else you need? My response was, sometimes I just want you to ask me how I'm doing. Like no one actually asks me if I'm okay ever. Not that I need that. I don't need my team to do it. But like I always ask everyone how they're doing. That would be really nice to hear from you. She does it every night now and I love it. It's so powerful.
That's so good, brother.
If anyone is listening at home right now and you want to know a strategy for the relationship one, we call it laser focus. So LASUR, spelt incorrectly. Love, appreciation, support, understanding, respect. So every Friday, Rosie and I have date night, non-negotiable, which most men stop doing once they have kids or stop dating. How's your love bank? Are you feeling loved? Yes or no? Why not? Are you feeling appreciated? What did I do this week to make you feel that way? Supported, understood, respected. It goes both ways. And then this is such a powerful question. Is there anything that came up for you this week that we haven't resolved? Because how often does something come up and we just put it in the pocket, and then 7 weeks later we're like, you know, when you did that fucking thing, I hate you, right? Final thing here is you mentioned the business sense, asking lots of questions. Is that something that innately comes to you, or is that something you've learned? Because there's a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, or Psycho-Cybernetics, and it says, be interested, not interesting. And I noticed that as soon as I met you, most people don't do this. You instantly asked me questions, got to know me. Is that something that comes naturally to you? Have you worked on it? And how can a man start doing that in his marriage or in his relationships?
Yeah, great question, mate. So I think it's, honestly speaking, proud of myself. It's one of my superpowers that has naturally been there. So my mother and my father. So my mother is a wonderful question asker, and my father is also sort of a deflector into a really great listener. So their powers combined creates myself, where I'm also just genuinely curious, mate. Like I'm so curious. I'd be so curious about you. I'm so curious about James. Like I want to know about like where you're from, like what interests you. Like for some reason that's naturally in me.
Amazing.
And I've also learned at the other side to not pepper people as well, because it can be a lot. Yeah. But also not ask a question just to fill silence, but ask a question because you genuinely want to know. And sometimes just ask open-ended questions as well. So it's something that I have genuinely has a bit of a gift. I've definitely worked on it, where I listen more and not try to, what's the word, kind of nod through. I'm like, oh, okay, and ask the next question without really listening. So if you can cultivate the beautiful skill of really listening, being okay with sitting in a bit of silence and thinking about what they just said, because oftentimes I'd leap into the next thing, but just sit and listen, and then ask a very well thought out question based off what they just said, you're in the top, dare I say, 5% of the people in the world.
Absolutely.
It's such a rare thing. Even when I go on dates, like in the dates in the past, my mate had asked me, how'd it go? I said, well, I know everything about her, where she grew up, what she's into, what her favorite food is, and she knows probably like my age. And not to saying like against them, I've had some lovely dates out there, but like having that ability to have great eye contact, handshake, ask someone, and genuinely be interested. It's another thing if you ask a question, then you just scoot off onto the next thing.
Yeah, well, it's about being curious and genuinely wanting to know.
Yeah.
Like looking in someone's eyes at the end of the day, no matter how tired you are, and saying, how was your day? And genuinely wanting to hear the answer. And when they say it was fine, going deeper and going, babe, I know you. I know you're not fine. What happened today? No, I'm fine. Seriously, what's going on? I want to understand you better. I want to understand you. That puts you in the top 0.1% of partners on the planet.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
please,
absolutely.
So that's such a great point, because I got to learn this in myself, again, showing the mirror to self. When in my last relationship, we'd have conversations, she'd ask me how I'm going, and I know that there's something there, but I'm like, it's fine. I wouldn't, but I'd ask her, I said, sometimes when I say I'm fine, can you just prod me a couple more times? Yeah. So sometimes some blokes aren't automatically going to go, here's my feelings. Like they'll just open themselves up straight away. Sometimes you have to prod just a little bit to get through the armor, meaning me. Like I'm pointing finger at myself because that's what I was like.
Yeah.
So just like your beautiful wife did, that's amazing. That's so good that you guys have that.
Yeah. So
for the ladies out there and their husband, if they go, yeah, I'm all right, don't be afraid to gently just be like, are you sure? Like, is there anything going on? And if you know, sometimes you do just not want to talk about it maybe. Yeah. But sometimes a little extra encouragement is like, you may not want to share, but I'm more than happy to listen if there's something going on for you.
Yeah. But a lot of couples don't feel safe with that.
There you go.
This armor you talk about, man, like we work with guys, it's built up for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
So it takes time to take off all the layers of armor. You're like a fucking armadillo. You're just fucking armored up, you know?
It's being safe in the relationship, isn't it?
It is. And that's what destroys them, because like collision creates connection, man. So people think you not arguing is a good thing. Rosie and I argued like fucking crazy the first 6 years. Went through so many ups and downs, like you said, the traumas, childhood stuff, different beliefs. But now we're so good, like best part of my life. But it took work. So if you're listening to this at home right now, like do the fucking work, or don't, and face the pain. Do whatever the fuck you want.
I recommend doing it. Yeah. Work with guys like this.
Yeah. Or join a mastermind, like see what you're doing. Like just have some support. I want to talk about, before we finish up, walking in the rain. Okay. So I saw an Instagram story of yours I think you might have liked one of our podcast posts. I went and followed you. I'm like, this guy looks awesome. Saw your story. I'm like, I need to get you on the pod. And the reason I got you on the podcast isn't your amazing good looks, right? Yeah, stop it. It's you, bro. You had your phone out on probably Main Beach or somewhere. I don't know where you were. Mm-hmm. And there was no one around you and it's pouring rain and you're just talking on the phone and you look happy and you're positive and you're like, just walking in the rain, you know, something we should do more of. And a lot of guys would look at that and be like, what the fuck's wrong with him? And I was like, no, but seriously, that's the problem with modern men is they've got a shit marriage, a shit business, everything's fucked. And they'll look at you and go, what's wrong with him? But you're the happy one. That's fucked up, right? So I saw that and I was like, you seem free. And I think for a lot of us, we don't feel free. We feel imprisoned. We feel imprisoned by our business. We feel imprisoned by our marriage or relationship. And we feel imprisoned by our mind. And just the idea of doing that would terrify so many men. So tell me what happened there. Like, what was that all about?
Being in the rain?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's all the time.
Yeah, but like, what is that for you? And like, I think if everyone tried it, it would be amazing. But like, what is that for you? What does it do for you?
Oh, mate, I think for me, one of my biggest values, and I don't know if this falls under the value banner, but it's just freedom.
Yeah.
Is feeling free and experiencing joy and having fun.
Yeah.
And that would come down to, but also going against the grain. Because there was no one on the beach and it was raining, like, I want to go.
Yeah.
But that is just the feeling that you get. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but if you're in your togs and you go for a swim, it's actually an incredible feeling. It's just going out there in the rain, not worrying about what anyone thinks, but it's also a sense of cleansing. Like the rain energetically, I believe, comes down and clears your aura. So if you're feeling kind of stuck in your body, if you get under the rain, it has a sense of just clearing away. And then I just wanted to share it because I was like, no one else is out here doing this. I want to tell people to do it because it's fun and it feels good. And it's kind of like nourishing your inner child and it helps to cleanse your aura. And I didn't think much of it, but it actually did have a bit of an impact. Obviously, you took notice of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, but it's something that's like really, really sort of simple to me, but it's also like we're showing up, we're doing business, we're in relationships, but it's also like taking the seriousness out of life.
Yeah.
And just having a bit of play.
Yeah, which is something we don't do. Like as successful men, providers, entrepreneurs, family men, peace, joy, fun, hobbies, they're non-existent. Like for me, I've been grinding for the last 8 years. I've only just started to have hobbies. I've got some golf here, right?
Nice.
You know, it's taking my daughter out. But like the last 3.5 years of being a father, I haven't done that. And I think I definitely am committed to going for a walk in the rain. And anyone who's listening to this today, like if you've taken anything from the podcast, create your own freedom. Create your own freedom by going for a walk in the rain. It might look and sound silly. Create your own freedom by journaling and meditating. Create your own freedom by facing the pain, by getting curious in your relationship. If you currently don't have freedom in your health, wealth, relationships, that's on you and you get to shift that. Is there any final piece of advice you'd like to give the listener at home on how they can improve their health, wealth, and relationships and be the best man or woman they can be?
Yeah, great question. Again, the amount of times I say great question. So everything starts with self, in my opinion. So as soon as you start working on mind, body, and heart, all of that trickles down to everything else, as you would know. So starting with little incremental steps, if you're just flat out, you got kids climbing all over you, businesses here, there, and everywhere, again, come back to that, carving out that little bit of time. Say you have the time, start carving it out in the day. And that could be going for a brisk walk in the morning, get some sunlight. Start thinking of things that you're grateful for. You tick the box of getting nature, sunlight. You tick the box of movement, energy, and then you tick the box of gratitude. That ticks mind, body, soul all in one go. And then slowly build off that, because without your health, everything else falls away. Forget relationships, forget work, forget money, forget everything. If you don't have the pinnacle at the very top, everything else falls away. And you can't you can't enjoy all these things if this is shit. So start off with a simple morning routine practice where you reflect on the beauty that you have in life, to transform your psychology, because the thing as well with gratitude, what I notice it does, gratitude transforms your psychology and your love towards two of the most important things in life, health and your relationships. As soon as you start thinking and writing down your gratitude, you'll write down health if it's in a good way, or you'll write down, I'm grateful that I, can stand up. you'll start writing down all the names of the people that you love and that you're grateful for. Then you'll start looking after those areas of life much, much more. If that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, start with gratitude. Like if you're listening to this right now, whether your life's amazing or not where you want it to be, what can you be grateful for? And then build on that and build that gratitude pool. So bro, so fucking awesome to meet you. Love your energy, love your vibe. What's the movie that you want them to go watch?
Right. So and then I've one thing to say.
Yeah,
after
sure.
that, that's okay.
Yeah.
So on Amazon Prime, there's a film called Girls Night Out. I play a very small role, but a role nonetheless.
Nice. Amazing.
And it's actually quite an impactful story.
Yeah.
I won't give away the ending, but it's a strong story around being safe when you go out drinking a night on the town, both men and women. So if you want to go and check that out, I play a character named Aiden, and I won't give it away. You can see it yourself, but I'm very grateful. It's one of my first of many films that will hopefully come out soon.
So good, man. You had one more thing you wanted to say?
Yes, mate. I want to acknowledge you, Tony.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you very much for this experience. And I also want to say thank you for the work that you do for the men out there. You are both directly and indirectly impacting, dare I say, thousands of men. And I love meeting someone who's on a mission to help others. And you can tell it's coming from a beautiful place. And you're a beautiful man and you communicate so well. You ask great questions. And that inspires me. And being around people like that, like that's why I was so excited for this opportunity, because I was like, this bloke, he's a rare breed. Like I want to be around people like this. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and say thank you for having me and thank you for your work. And you're an inspiration, bro. And
thank you, brother.
Appreciate
Appreciate it.
Honor.
Much love. We'll have to do this many more times and walk in the rain together. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you.
Beautiful.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.